from the Spirit with glorious light. Confident living cleanses my soul, giving the Spirit fullest control.
I'm Mike Costello, and I'd like to take a few minutes to talk to you about rowing your boat of daily living and of life. In New Thought, we believe that we live in our minds and not in the world, and what that means is that the way that we think about the circumstances and situations that take place in our lives determine how we feel, how we act, and how we react. A few weeks ago, I was at a child daycare center, and the children there were performing, and they sang the little lyric, "Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream." And I was reminded of how the simplest truths sometimes come to us in the simplest of ways. And so as they were singing that song, I was reminded of the kind of lessons that that song or that little lyric gives to our daily lives, and how in something as simple as the "Row, row, row your boat" song, we can see some guideposts for daily living and a real understanding, or come to a real understanding from the application of that lyric into the realization of New Thought truth. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. The first part of that lyric says, row, row, row your boat. The interesting thing about that is that it says row your boat. And if we think about this story or this song in telling us how to live our lives, how to deal with difficulties and how to deal with challenges, we can see so many wonderful truths gleaning through. Row, row, row your boat. Row your boat of life down the stream. The real beginning of this tells us to row our boat. In our daily lives, so often we want to row other people's boats as well as ours. And in that, we give them advice, or we have ideas or thoughts about how people should act or react. But in truth, we need to really be good at our own ability to deal with the circumstances and situations of life. So we're really invited to row our boat. It's kind of a ridiculous thing to see or to visualize someone trying to row 2 boats or 3 boats or 4 boats. But very often, each of us gets caught in that trap of trying to row other people's boats of life and telling them how they should act and react. So we need to row, row, row our boat. Rowing the boat is an individual experience, and so we're invited to live our life first as individuals. And even though that may seem isolating, it is important for us to understand that we have to take command, we have to take control of our own boat of life. And if we're going to do that, we're going to have to grow and come to understand how we can row the boat ourselves before we can give other people advice. Obviously, at different points in time, we will give other people advice, and sometimes it will be very sound. But the soundest advice comes when we give advice to others on daily living, when our own life is in order, when we're able to row our own boat, effortlessly and positively getting to the destination where we want to be. The next part of the song says, gently down the stream. One of the wonderful things about that word gently is that even as we say it, it brings into our consciousness or into our thoughts a symbolism of moving methodically, moving lightly, not moving in a heavy or difficult way, but gently moving. The other thing that it says is to move gently down the stream. And the stream of life carries all of us, either upstream or downstream. And when we're being carried downstream, the currents carry us such effort in an effortless fashion. And as we're moved in an effortless fashion, it causes us to work less hard. And so we want to move our boat of life, to move our life experience gently down the stream. And on those occasions that we have to go upstream and that we're faced with difficulty or challenges, it still bodes well for us to do so gently, to be able to put the oars of life, to put our feelings and to put our heart and our mind into the water gently, and to keep it there in a gentle and peaceful fashion. And whether we're going upstream or downstream, we're going to move much more easily and much more safely and in a much less effort, in an effortless way. Merrily, 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 is the next line. And the interesting thing about that is that merrily, 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 merrily is said 4 times. And so if we're using this song to apply to our daily lives, it is really telling us that being merry, being happy, being joyful, having that part of our life that is resilient and positive is eminently important. It's difficult sometimes for us to be merrily, merrily, merrily going down the stream. But if we're able to see the joy and to maintain the joy in many of life's experiences, we're able to release the hostility and the anger and the difficulty that robs us of that joyfulness and of that happiness, and also takes from us the ability that we can have to be gentle persons and to live in a gentle way. The last line is, life is but a dream. And that reminds us that all of our life experiences are lived almost in a dreamlike state, but they're lived in our minds. And our dreams take place in our minds. And the purest form of mind activity that we can relate to kind of help you understand the concept of mind dynamics is the state of dreaming. Because as we dream, we're out of the conscious world. We're in an unconscious world, but in that unconscious world, our minds are operating and moving through the process of life. And so it's important to always remember that our minds are operating constantly. And if we operate with the awareness that life is but a dream, life is but a mental experience, life is but a process through which our thoughts flow. Even though experiences come to us, and as the song says, we row our boat, we have to do the things that involve daily living. We have to have jobs, and we have to maintain households and budgets, and we have to meet expenses and meet the challenges of life. That's a part of rowing the boat. But in the midst of that, we are in a dreamlike state because our minds are constantly operating. And if our minds are operating with the realization and understanding that life is but a dream, we claim the fact that we are in the process of always living out our life and living out every experience in our minds as much as we live it in the external world. So often we think we live in the external world, but really every time we feel something that's happening outside of us or in our life experience, it's how we think about it and how we process it in mind that really matters. In this process of rowing our boat and moving through the streams of life and being merry and happy and understanding that we live in our minds and that life is truly a dream, it's important for us to remember the fact that we're all connected. And all of us need to have this ability to deal gently with life and with ourselves, to be merry and to be happy. And in that process, we need to be reminded that all of us in life, all of us as spiritual beings and as physical beings are tied together. And therefore, we need to have mutual respect, mutual understanding, and great tolerance one for another. It's a little bit like a drop of water in the ocean. The ocean is made up of a huge volume of water, but it's made up of many, many, many drops that create what is the whole. And that's how we see life, as a whole. And we invite you, if you don't already to believe that, to entertain the idea and the thought that there is a continuum, and there is a unity, and there is a universality of all people that has nothing to do with race or creed or nationality or religion. It has to do with the fact that all of us are on a journey in this life, and that this journey that we call physical life creates for us opportunities to reach out and touch each other. And as we reach out and touch each other, we become stronger persons in the inner person. And that which is inside us, that spiritual reality, is the reality of who and what we truly are. And so in your life, I hope that you are rowing your boat gently down the stream. I hope that always you are going downstream, but on those occasions that you must go upstream in the stream of life, that you're able to row your boat, not worry about the boats and lives of others when you're in the midst of conflict, and that you're able to have a gentle spirit and a gentle mind, and above all, that you're happy and joyful and it's centered in peace, and that is the merrily, merrily, merrily. Whatever you face today, whatever challenges you have, whatever difficulties you have, you live them out in your mind. And as you are able to condition your mind and the way that you think about circumstances and situations, you are able to change the way that you perceive life, the way that life touches you, and the way that your life is moving. That doesn't mean that it will always be easy. It does mean that it will always be easy for you to deal with what you have to deal with in a positive and affirmative way, the dynamic of mind action. We go a step further by saying that we connect our mind, my mind, your mind, and all of us connect our mind with that which is divine. In the Christian tradition, we know that as God. And we believe that as we connect our mind, our human mind, and our spiritual mind with the divine mind of God, or that which is divine in your faith tradition, but as you connect your mind with that mind, then you connect with the limitless potential of all of the universe. You have access to peace and wholeness and happiness and joy and the ability to learn from the experiences of life, the lessons that we need to learn. And so now, as you hear that song again, as simple as it is, the row, row, row your boat song, I hope that each time you hear it, you're reminded of the fact that it invites you, it calls you, and it waits for you to bring your life to a peaceful and happy place. We believe in prayer and meditation as a centering force and as a way to bring ourselves into wholeness and unity with the power and the presence of God. So we'd like to invite you at this point in the program to pause for a moment of prayer and meditation with us. Eternal and loving God, we gather ourselves together in the awareness of your love for each one of us. And we claim the truth that it is our responsibility to row the boat of life for ourselves, and that as we become better at this process of rowing the boat of life through the turbulent situations and the happy situations, as we unite with you and your divine mind, we are centered and we are prospered and we are at peace. We ask and pray these things in the name of faith, the name of hope, and the name of love. Amen.
That was such a marvelous analogy of a peaceful, rewarding life in relation to the song.
It's a simple song, and that's what I was taken with when I heard it. It's such a simple song, and I probably heard it, I wouldn't say 100 times, but certainly a lot of times in my life. And it's just interesting that as I was listening to it, I was able to glean these spiritual truths that are really very common and very simple. And it is a simple song with a simple truth, and it can really touch our lives if we apply it.
But the truth is, the most simple things in life are the most meaningful. And so you used that song in such a very erudite way. And the rowing the boat, taking charge of your own life, and you so often speak of self-responsibility, and we've reached the time where we have to assume self-responsibility in our evolutionary journey. And the gentle part is so wonderful, because that's how we have to live life.
Absolutely. Rowing the boat of life, I think, is a great analogy, because it gives us a real clear picture. And of course, any of us that have ever tried to row a boat know that unless you get those oars right, and unless you are rowing in a reasonable fashion, that it's difficult to maneuver. And a lot of us in our daily lives feel that we're having difficulty maneuvering.
And we make our own problems.
We make our own problems because we get so involved in them. And as we get involved in our problems, we become more complex than we need to be. And what we really need to be is simple. Yeah.
And the laws of metaphysics tell us that we're here on Earth to work through problems, to work through whatever it is we came to do. And they tell us further that we planned, with the help of those on the inner planes, our guardian angel and the Lord or angel of karma and perhaps others, what we're going to accomplish in this earth life and with whom, therefore where we're going to be living. And we make up like an outline of our lives. So if we can do that, just take charge of our lives, as you were indicating, and do it gently and joyously, merrily, merrily, and then know that life, a lot of people say this is the illusion, and reality, actuality, is on the inner planes of being. So it would seem that way, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And the end of the song says life is but a dream.
Yes.
And it is a dream. And what some people have said, of course, is that we actually begin to go to sleep to our spiritual self and to the real world when we're born into this physical experience, and that we spend most of our physical experience slumbering. And if that's true, then most of what we know as daily life is really a dream. And of course, one thing that we believe in New Thought, and we believe in the metaphysical philosophy, as do all great religions, is that there is a life that extends beyond this life, and that there was a life before this life. And so there's a continuum on the spiritual side of life. And so that is really important to understand, that the physical life, important as it is transient. And that's hard for us in a lot of cases, because I think our conscious mind so often tells us that this life is all there is. And if this life is all there is, then I better do something really quick to solve the problems. And really, in fact, what we end up doing is making the problems more complex, not solving them, and drawing ourselves farther away from our spiritual center, which could bring us the peace that we need.
Yes, and must, in order for us to fulfill our destiny on the planet as we were meant to do, according to our plan before we came in. And if we can remember that and know that these things, the problems that arise, are problems we need to work through in order to achieve our destiny, then it makes it easier. Then we know that this is not just something, we're not being punished, and God doesn't have it in for us. And we are working through those things we planned in advance to work through. There is another facet that a lot of spiritual teachers are saying, and that is that when we work through problems of our own, then we're helping to lift the consciousness of the planet. And you touched on the fact that we are all one. So we're helping to lift the consciousness of all when we lift our own consciousness, and of the earth itself, because the earth is a body, as we know, and it has a soul. Everything is as above, so below. So it would have all the various attributes that human beings have. So when we help lift the consciousness of the earth, just doing very simple things, rowing our boat merrily, happily, joyously, gently, fulfilling what you outlined, then we are fulfilling our destiny. And I think if everyone could think of their lives in those terms, life would be easier. They wouldn't think, oh, I'm not fulfilling what I came here to do. I'm not doing enough.
You know, rowing the boat is a good example, because it is effortless if we get it right. And if we get in sync with what's happening. And I think that what we need to get in sync with is both what is taking place in our physical life and what's taking place in our spiritual life, so that the two are working hand in hand. And when that happens, then dynamic and wonderful things happen. A great example is Christ Jesus in his life, in his example. And that was that no matter what happened to him, no matter what people said about him, no matter what the environment seemed to bring, no matter whether it was the government or whether it was his adversaries, he always saw beyond and was able to row his boat in a gentle way, and was happy for most of the time, and he understood that it was transient. And that's the challenge that I think we have as well. And the issue of consciousness is a tremendous one, and one that we need to really emphasize. And for those of traditional backgrounds, I think one thing, consciousness is a term that we use in New Thought, and it's a wonderful one to introduce traditional thinkers to. But if we think in terms of the traditional way of looking at things, if we just look at the power of the blessing, we just look at the power of what it does to bless something. And if we just take that to each individual, and if each individual is able to send forth what we would call a consciousness of peace, but it would be a consciousness of blessing into the environment, into the world, then that power of blessing touches everyone around that person, and it begins to negate the hurt and the pain and the negativity, and it brings the power and presence of God into a higher point of consciousness, and that has tremendous power. One of the things that we say about consciousness is that we have to be aware of the fact that the way that we think creates things. And so the physical world comes out of our thought. The physical world in its beginnings came out of the mind of God. God thought the world into existence, and now we think things into existence. This piece of furniture was thought into existence. Somebody had the idea, I'm going to make a chair. And so they had to draw plans. They had to write those plans out. Someone else had to buy the materials and follow the plan, and then manufacture the chair. But it all came from thought, which was the seed that created it all. And so that seed process of thought can create in our life and in our world either chaos or peace, happiness or sadness. And so it's really important that we be aware of the fact that we don't bring into the consciousness around us negative influences, and that we don't bring that into the consciousness of the world. Obviously, we'd like to change the whole world, but we begin one person at a time or two people at a time.
Yes, well, of course, we do change the whole world by changing our own small corner. And when we change ourselves, then we change the energies and the vibrations. And you often speak of everything, it has a vibratory rate, and everything functions according to its own vibratory rate. So our homes then can be a haven of peace that goes out into the world, into the neighborhood, and as above, so below. If it does it here on Earth, then it goes on out into the atmosphere, and it's far-reaching. So if we center ourselves from time to time each day and stay centered, then we personally are creating that atmosphere. And then if in our homes it's peaceful and happy, and in our workplace it's peaceful and happy, and so forth, then we are co-creators with God the whole. And so we can remind our listeners that they are indeed, each is indeed a co-creator with God the whole. And they are creating just the way you said, either the way you outlined, which is ideally, or not.
In a negative way,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. The power of mind is the creative force, and it is the creative force behind everything that exists in the visible and the invisible world. And so it's tremendously important. And one of the things we talk about often is simply the idea of feeling a certain way when we walk into a house. You gave a great example of the fact that we can make our homes havens of peace and grace and love by bringing that vibration into our homes. And all of us know a home that we walk into and we say that this is just a wonderful feeling. And it may have to do with the decor, or it may have to do with the furnishings, but really we've all walked into very humble surroundings that had that positive feeling.
Indeed.
And yet we've walked into other environments where we said immediately, oh my goodness, this is not where I want to be. And so often, those negative environments are the ones that we try to stay away from. And of course, on the human level and on the purely physical level, many people are not aware of the fact that they can change any of that. And so they just say something feels badly. But for those of us who understand the laws of metaphysics and understand the spiritual principles of vibration and the connectiveness that that vibration of life has with the power and grace of God, then we are called into those places to bring about peace. Because as we bring a vibration of peace, it's just like if there are two or three people arguing and someone else is very peaceful and comes into that environment, often that person that brings sense, if you will, to the group is able to prevail. Other times that person may come into the environment and from that experience not be able to bring any peace. Then it's time to withdraw and allow that negative influence to go on and then come back again. The importance is not to stay away from it simply because it is negative. You know, so many people in New Thought will say, oh, this place or that place has such a negative vibration, so I don't like it, I don't like it. And we've had some church buildings where people have come in and they've said to me, well, I don't like the vibration. Most times they say they like the vibration, but if they say they don't like the vibration, then I say, let's change it. What have you done to change it? And they can begin to change the vibration. And I think we have that responsibility, but it's a responsibility of connecting with something that we can't necessarily see, but that we know is there.
Yes, and I have not seen nor heard what is in store for us. And that's, again, is above, so below. If it's true on the inner planes, it's in heaven, so-called heaven, then it's true right here on earth, in our church buildings, in our public buildings, as we walk down the street, wherever we are. We carry those energies with us, and it makes a difference. You know, what I think is so very exciting, a lot of those people who are channeling information from those on the inner, and some of them might not be exactly channeling who they say they are, but many are, and they're giving us good and accurate and wonderful information. They're all saying that the consciousness of mankind has raised to the point now where things are changing quickly. And you know, we've all talked about time being escalated, and we know that time has escalated. And we talk about the changes that we were going to be facing. Well, this is it. We're in the middle of those changes, and everything is stepped up. So we have to consciously center ourselves. We have to be more aware of how we affect others. And when we do, then the reward is ever so much greater.
And as we become participants in that, we become participants who are directing our life and directing our thinking, as opposed to believing that life is simply dealing us whatever it's dealing, and that it's luck or it's fate. And in truth, there is no luck, there is no fate. It is within our personal purview. And as we said earlier, it's personal responsibility.
Yeah.
And that issue of being personally responsible for what we think and how we live and how we behave and what our relationship is with that which is divine.
Exactly. And to keep our relationship with the divine stable and one-pointed, and as we do, we reap wonderful rewards because it's that much easier for us to stay calm and centered and attuned with divinity. And as we do that, then we're rewarded by seeing people around us calm and centered. So it's like throwing the pebble in the water, but it's so wonderful to know. And it's wonderful to know that we're living in this time of greatest change the world has ever known, and that we're doing it right.
Absolutely.
That's the exciting part, isn't it?
And so many people are doing it right, and it's touching so many lives.
Yes.
And it's important to note when we talk about this effect that God never changes.
Yes.
God isn't changing his or her idea of the world. God is a constant, and that presence and that power is constant, and it is supporting every one of us. It undergirds us, and it loves every one of us. But what we are doing with the life experience is what changes, and our perception changes. And so we invite people to think in those positive and affirmative ways. And one of the things that we need to do is share that truth with people so that they can be empowered to change their way of thinking. And as they change their way of thinking, understand that they change their own personal world, their own boat as they row it, but they also change the entire world and the vibration of the world.
Yes, and that we judge ourselves. God doesn't judge us. God is love. He doesn't judge us. But as we judge ourselves, and after we go over into God's great country, we do that in a very gentle, a far different frame of reference than we do here on earth. So the things we're doing here are the things we're supposed to be doing if we feel centered and comfortable with it.
Absolutely. And what we seek is to be centered and to be always in the presence and the awareness of God. And so as you row your boat of life, Dr. Freelander and I have been sharing with you some concepts and ideas about how you can do that in a gentle and merry way. And we hope that you found interesting the information we shared with you, and look forward to seeing you next time.
Confident living, banner of might, comes from the Spirit with glorious light. Confident living cleanses my soul, giving the Spirit fullest control. Confident living rights every wrong. Dynamic power helps me be strong. Confident living comforts my heart. From such a blessing I can't depart. Confident living helps me expand.